Yeah. We should talk into that or not.
I don't know when he came to our place. Or I know. I don't know when he did.
He just sat in his office and flew the drone up.
He came once, but the camera got his dad. The high schoolers.
We got footage from somewhere because you're in the video.
Have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
It's on the Facebook page.
Okay, I will.
Yeah.
I'll look.
Posted both on Visitor Scott and the city page.
I don't think Venado Del Allen was not on there either.
What was it? Oh, no.
Winery.
One time she gave instructions not to include her.
Yeah, that's true.
And then,
So I want to welcome everybody to the Tourism Advisory Board meeting for November 23rd, 2021. First thing, let's go ahead and we'll get back to what we were talking about. But review of the minutes for the last meeting. And if someone wants to start that approval process.
Rhonda did it last time.
I can do it this time if I need to.
I move that we approve the minutes as provided for the August 26th meeting.
A second.
Sure.
Yes.
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 Laura Aggie?
AG.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay, next item, budget, where we are.
Is there an agenda that I missed?
Oh, I'm sorry. You did miss it because they're all sitting right here.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, pass those around. Do we need more? Good?
I think so.
Thank you, Bill.
Yep.
Tourism guest tax quarterly collection, Q4 $52,772, total $140,450.53.
Not a bad year, considering.
Considering.
Yep.
I think your next quarterly payment is going to be one of the higher Q1 payments too, of what we're seeing in the field. So that's
Great.
Great. Glad to hear that. So, and went ahead and played the new Agritourism video. Do want to thank Kenny Felt and Gage Wilson for their help on that. And that can be found on our Visit Fort Scott Facebook page. And I know the advisory board had asked for a follow-up regarding this project. So want to make sure that we got that finished up before December.
Question, what's our plan to utilize and benefit that? What are we going to do with it now that it's done?
I think mainly social media. And I'd like to probably put that in a regular rotation along with, we hope, future video productions.
Do you use them in these conferences and trade shows and things that you go to? Do you utilize video like that?
I have not yet,
Mm-hmm.
but I've seen some people that do it. you know, I've seen backdrops that actually have your banner, logo, some of your tourism assets, and then in the middle of it, it's a blank area where you can impose, you know, put that video up. So that's a possibility to do that. I saw Frank Kenny, I believe, had one out at the airport for the fly-in, and a neat piece of promotional material. So, yeah.
Do you guys keep track of your accounts? I mean, you had a weekend recently, last weekend, right?
We're open for gift shop, yeah.
And then you've got Lavender Fest. Do you keep numbers of where if we were to put a strategy in place where we're using this video and promoting on social media and an attempt to help you push your festival numbers and your regular attendance numbers, you can provide that feedback to us?
We haven't, but we've talked about doing it. I know you guys can do it at the square, bring us, so I need to figure it out, and we'll do that. But that's we were trying to keep track, on our festival days, we keep track.
Yeah.
For as much as we can, but yeah, it's something we talk about.
It's always good to know. Always good to know how many folks you have and tracking, that kind of thing, so.
I'm gonna be, I think, looking at the thing, I'm gonna be fairly consistent in this thing, asking about tracking and how we are going to tell whether we should do this again next year or do more of this or less of this based upon some results. Because I think that's important to guide our work, and we have done not a very good job of that in the past. So I just hope we can be more aggressive on figuring out, give us some information to work with and tracking based upon whatever effort we put forward towards promoting or, you know, doing stuff.
So if the Lavender Patch does that, should every tourism-based business probably be doing that?
I think so. We're gonna get together, we're gonna promote those businesses, and we're gonna have a social media strategy or effort towards getting people out there. We should ask for numbers. Just say, hey, we're promoting your business. Is this working or not working? Because if it's not,
Somehow we can do it where it's consistent whenever we can.
absolutely.
So
Right.
everyone's kind of doing this.
Yeah, I think everyone would have to be very consistent with it for it to be accurate, but.
Well, those that want to be partners can be partners. If you're going to work together on promoting the lavender farm, then you provide those numbers, and you know, I mean, that's a partnership. What a partnership's like if you want to help to promote your black dog or lavender or whatever.
Right. Okay.
Like you probably, even though that it's free to come to the festival, I've seen
The
events.
festival costs $5. All the other events are free.
Okay, so you would have
13 and
ticket
up.
then.
13 and up,
I was just gonna say, I've seen events that are free, but they still require a ticket.
yeah. And
Like,
we may do that
then you
this year
can
because we
Have a way
think
to.
it's going to be bigger, a lot bigger. So we're talking about doing a ticket system, morning and afternoon or something.
Even on free events, do people sign in or register so you can get their email address and put them on your list and stuff?
We've
So
been doing that a
you
lot.
could use that as a means to help gauge whether there's more or less on an event-to-event
Yeah,
basis.
definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
You may already do this, Jackson, and it may be in here somewhere, but back when Larry was here, he talked a lot about what kind of posts got how many hits or how many views or how many likes, so that he could tell the followers of Visit Fort Scott or the city of Fort Scott what they were responding to. And he did a lot of analytics around social media and what was effective for him and what wasn't effective for him and stuff like that, which is a great, not easy, but wouldn't be easy to me, but a great tracking mechanism too, to say we get the biggest hit from agritourism, lead with that, or the fort gets the biggest response or whatever, that we know what our lead should be to go along with that.
I do keep track of it. Probably not as close as some people would, but you know, I watch to see, okay, well, what's getting 500 likes or hits versus 5,000, you know, and sometimes those numbers are very interesting to see. So, but
Absolutely.
I will certainly take that under advisement. You make a note here. Under recent events, if everybody's done with that, just kind of run through these, and I think we've talked about them beforehand. But just to recap, the Kansas Tourism Conference I attended last month, I found it to be very beneficial. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that as we go on down through here. Wichita Women's Show, went to that. I think that show was the holiday show, and it was brand new, first year that they'd done it. I was hoping for a bigger turnout, more traffic through to our booth. We did register, I believe it was, I have it written down, 130 people at our for our register to win, and so I mentioned that to a couple other folks in tourism, and they thought, hey, that's a pretty good number. That's decent for a brand new show. So, but anyway, I think it went well, but I would hope for better opportunities.
You know how many, we've gotten any bites on people coming to town, redeeming a coupon code or any way to know
No.
if that was, so, okay.
No.
And I think we suggested using something like that, a giveaway or something, an item. You know, I would be happy to, print a postcard that has a 15% off at the Sleep Inn, 15% off at Cortland. You know, book your reservation using these coupon codes when you call in, so that way we have some kind of idea. Do they come or do they not come? And because I'll absolutely tell you, if somebody books, if I see a coupon code come from the women's show, but if we don't have any idea if anybody ever showed up as a result of that time and energy and money that you spent doing that.
Do you think that's a subjective thing, though? I'll give you an example. Yeah, we'll give 15%. Well, is that enough to really? Is that the magic number that gets people to say, "Here's the coupon," or is it something else? And I don't know the answer to that, Bill.
We have 10% on our,
And
my daughter did a newsletter, she does 10% when they first sign up. I get a lot of people on the website.
That got a good response.
They'll do that 10%, they'll put a code in and they get 10% off their.
but if
So
they're
maybe
going to
that's what
come
we
as a
do.
result of the exposure,
Right.
they're going to use the coupons.
Right.
They're
Right.
going to redeem the offers that you've bade them with. So
From
Right.
women's conference or whatever, yeah.
And
that's a good idea,
15%
really.
on a hotel room is worth $15.
right. And so
You know, that's
I can set that up
yeah.
in my system. I'm
I do.
sure
I'm sure it
So
varies.
do you think maybe
just a postcard.
a postcard
Something
that
has
has
a bunch of, visit our
6
community
ads
deals.
Yeah.
And then you're able to run a report to see what codes were used.
postcard with maybe a half dozen opportunities for some of our larger tourism assets? Okay.
Now, you would want that to be specific, each event specific,
Sure.
so
So you can
Right.
track it.
Exactly.
you'd have to have different tracking codes for the different cars for the different events, or you just blend it all together.
Mhm.
Right. Right.
Something.
Yeah.
Something. So we can
Yeah.
have some kind of idea of whether we're swinging and missing or whether we're making contact with any of these
Yeah.
events
Right.
that we're doing.
I guess you could, if you had a list of events that you were going to, that you were gonna print off cards, you could print off the code for each one of the events would be a specific event code.
Mm-hmm.
You can maybe, just have 4 events on one card or something, instead of having to make up new ones every time or
Right.
whatever, but just thought.
Right. No, that sounds reasonable. So,
And inexpensive. I mean, a postcard isn't a high dollar.
right. Yeah. Okay. I'll plan on doing that. Veterans Day celebration. I think the events went well. VFW ceremony, I think, was well attended. Mark and I and others went to that. I know Brian said that the brew house, the social, was about average year over year. Of course, we don't like average. We'd like above average, but there wasn't a parade this year. However, we added the monuments and memorials trolley tour and the 5K run walk, and also the 10K challenge. I talked to Lindsay Watts and she said she thought her, event went well. I know that Lindsay and I actually talked about, we wish that we'd had a few more on the trolley tour, but maybe if we continue that for a couple of years, that'll grow. We actually had 3 different tours. They were each at 2 p.m. on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So we even talked about maybe, taking that down to 2.
Next year it's on a Friday, so I think we're gonna offer
Friday
just
and
Friday and
Saturday.
Saturday too. And the people that did take it really enjoyed it. But Arnold Schofield narrated it and practiced or rehearsed. You know, we already had a write up on each monument, but put the tour together.
Yeah.
So I think if it's promoted, since we already kind of have it together, are able
Right.
to promote it more
Easy
next year.
to do again.
Do you have any idea how KOM got the impression that the tourism board decided not to have a parade? Because that's what the news said.
Yeah, I saw that too, and I do not know.
Because I went back and rewatched. I thought, crap, what
Yeah.
did we?
Did
Did we make that? I said, going back and rewatch this last meeting, and what we said was, this is probably an event better led by the VFW and the Legion. Let's get together with those guys and give them all the support we can give them.
Right.
But never did we say, we're not gonna, let's not do that.
Yeah.
So,
I was disappointed in that.
disappointed, yeah.
Yeah, all I
in the
know
press.
was I did have a text because I was at a conference that week, and I had a text from Jessica Allison, who's head of the Legion, because I wasn't even in town. I usually watch the news, but I was at a conference out of town, and she texted me, and she just said that she just wanted me to know that she did not tell the news. Of course, I was out of state at a conference. I didn't even know about the news story, but she just wanted to clarify. She said, I just want you to know I did not tell the news that the tourism board canceled.
Yeah. So I don't know where
And
that
I
came
just-
from.
I read it too in the newspaper or somewhere.
It was in the newspaper. It was on.
And not being aware,
Fort
you know, I
Scott
just,
News.
you know,
So
told her that that I appreciated their service and,
yeah,
overall, and so.
yeah, there was a source that
So somewhere.
because it was spread pretty much everywhere. So
Which led to a spontaneous parade, which is
Right.
cool.
which was
Yeah.
which was actually great. So
It was, and I don't think if the veteran community, there's several organizations there, was accustomed to the tourism group organizing a parade of blah, 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 that may not be their strength. But it isn't like the news is going to say the veterans didn't have a parade.
right.
It was easier to say the tourism group didn't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And the same with, then I think it's really cool, their veteran managed impromptu parade was really successful. I think that's, an awesome replacement, so.
Yep, that was good. Appreciate them doing that.
I think parades we have a couple of really good parades and then several not well attended and sometimes not participated in parades to the where I don't know which parade you would not have anymore, but there's probably good old days in the Christmas parade are the most successful. And then the others require a lot of work and a lot of coordination, a lot of city manpower and stuff, but people don't really attend them or they don't have very much participation in them. I don't know how maybe we get down to 2 great parades a year and do them really, really well, and the city or tourism or somebody needs to say, we can't have a parade every other month or every month. In the fall, it seems like we have one every month. But it's just I'm not anti-parade. I'm just saying that it's sad sometimes when you're carrying the banner for some group and there's nobody sitting along the streets. It's a bad deal.
Agreed. Upcoming conferences and shows, actually. Springfield Boat Show. That was something, but an event that I've earmarked as something that I think is probably far enough away that people might stay the night. What's your thought, Frank? You think that's far enough away?
Are you saying
That if people come from Springfield would they tend to stay the night in Fort Scott, or would they turn around and go back to Springfield?
That's kind of a loaded question for as far as the answer, and the answer is yes and no. That's almost impossible to say that they're
Right.
going to. You know, if you come to see the Fort Scott historic site, you show up there at 10 o'clock in the morning, you're done at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
Okay, so it's.
Well, boat show, I would think they'd be coming here to go fishing or something.
Good.
Sports.
Those
You know,
are people spending money.
Yeah.
You know, in your sporting goods field, I don't know if everybody's noticed it or not, but for the last month, there's been hunters crawling all over Fort Scott.
Mm-hmm.
So, marketing to those guys with our tourism money, I don't think is necessary. They're coming anyway. The guys that are going to come here and stay, they're already coming. So there's no reason to spend money on them. It's the other markets we need to figure out where to go to. You know, boat shows are good for people like me that, you know, like to fish.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that I'm gonna go to Fort Scott, Kansas to fish.
Right.
You know, hunting, that kind of stuff. So, you know, the question always comes back around for me is who are we targeting at the sports show? Who are we targeting at the women's show? Who are we targeting at the different events that we're going to?
Mm-hmm.
What's the demographic that we're trying to actually reach? Those are the questions that I have when it comes to looking at what kind of convention or show you're going to go to. Is who's going to be there, and are they going to be family people? Are they be people that bring their kids and go stay and see and do? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody walks a different life, but the distance thing of Springfield, I mean, that's, you know, the people that are going to go to that boat show are going to come from St. Louis, Fayetteville, Arkansas, Kansas City. I mean, that's just
Mm-hmm.
how that works. KC
Right.
Boat Show, same thing. You're going to have thousands of people from outside of Kansas City that go up there and go to the show.
Right.
They're there for a day, and then they go home. Some of them stay.
I think the pond we're fishing in here is, we need to be we'd be marketing campsites, we'd be marketing hunting, we'd be marketing fishing, we'd be marketing to those outdoor assets that those people are there shopping for. And quite frankly, there's not much money to be made by the community in the hunting and camping. I mean, we've got Lake Francis, we've got a few campsites here. And so maybe they would come and rent campsites, but they're, whether they're bringing their RV or whether they're camping. To me, this is a market that I wouldn't consider to be worth a lot of money chasing. And I don't know what's the cost of the go to register and be a vendor at the boat show.
I think these were things I was looking at. I believe they were $800 to $1,200, depending on. But here's something else that I was thinking of. It's not necessarily the theme of these, but it's more, are these people active and spending money, and are they interested in no, we're not proposing that they come here to fish and hunt. We're proposing that these people have money to spend and occasionally like to get away for a weekend. That's where my mind goes, is not necessarily like if we go to the we talked about what was it, Wamego, the flower show, tulip show. I'm not necessarily saying we need to target people that are interested in tulips, but are those the type of people that will come to Fort Scott? I guess is
I would agree with you there, that we're looking for
It's
people
more-
with disposable income
yeah,
that are active. And by active, I mean they're going to boat shows or tulip shows or whatever, that might potentially visit our town and spend the night.
yes,
That's to me, the target of wherever we go. But I also agree with you. I think hunters, and I'm certainly not a hunter, They don't just say, hey, let's go hunt in Fort Scott.
Yeah.
We don't have that much public hunting space. That's something you own land, you plan ahead, probably seeing the exact same people year after year after year. They're certainly not dragging their wives along. They, they come and they stay in their place, and that's how it works. Fishermen, it might be a little different, I would think, because you can get on a lake, you have places that you like to go. And if we had some fishing hole that was
Popular, good
hot,
for tournaments, for sure.
right, exactly.
Mhm.
But I think we're looking for the people who have disposable income, who would travel around and come to a place like this,
Exactly.
We get a
wherever they
lot,
might be.
we get a lot of people who, Overland Park is there, we love to see
Mhm.
Johnson County.
Yeah.
You know, cause they spend, and then after they've seen us, then we'll tell them all these different towns, and we always have, we try to get a booklet for sure, a map, and we send them all over, and, where to go, and they'll want, where do we go, where's to eat, things like that. But you'd be surprised, I think if we counted Fort Scott as a weekend getaway,
Sure.
and, go to these places, and we even talked with someone mentioned last time you went through your 100, these things, if you're a history buff, these things, but I really think we need to have us as a day trip or
Destination.
a destination over a weekend. I think we'd be really surprised.
Yep.
That we get.
Well, and your cost benefit, and it's never gonna pencil out dollar to dollar, but if an average hotel room in Fort Scott is $90, 6% would be $5.40 transient guest tax earned on every room spent, every room bought. You'd have to sell 185 room nights
To break even.
to break even on $1,000 show. I mean, even if it's 50, okay, the sales tax and the other things that you contribute, but that's just with the numbers. And that 1,000 doesn't consider your fuel and your time and materials and anything you spend to go and be there and do that. And I think, just to me, that's not we do need to be out and exposing ourselves, but I think we need to know where our honey holes are, where our hot spots are, and be fishing in the right place instead of, just putting the bobber out and just being there.
Right. I agree.
Jackson, what you might look at too with these shows or other shows is what do you get in addition to being able to set up a table? Do you get an email list of the participants? Do you get a spot on their social media? Those kind of things. What comes with it with the package, because that can be worth something. It's a list that you cannot buy without attending typically. But if you can be, they run ads. Typically, all of those places are geo-fenced for social media. So anytime somebody does a Google search or anything within that fence, they'll see an ad for Fort Scott, Kansas. So find out if any of them do that.
Okay.
If it's not an additional expense, you may just be paying for those lists and that exposure. I'm definitely a fan of Overland Park too, so I'm not sure the other two would be a good bang for the buck, but Overland Park, you see Johnson County plates on a car in town, they typically are spending money, so.
I love it.
But that might be something that you look at as far as the value goes. And in addition to staying in a hotel, of course, they're going to spend money in other places too. Our goal is that they spend money in a hotel, but overall, get them to come here and spend some money, fill up their tank, whatever they're going to do, tell their friends about Fort Scott, and then hopefully next year they'll come back with more people. But it's casting a net. Those shows are all about exposure, and it's hard to get data from them. I've attended thousands of conferences and shows, and lead generation is difficult. I think we talked in one of our meetings about being able to set up meetings with people. If you know somebody's going to be there, to say, meet me at my booth so that we can discuss your group coming to Fort Scott, or use it as a common meeting place. You know, sometimes that makes it more effective too. But just going there and setting up a table, you know, I'm with him. It's you know, it's an expensive venture.
It is.
You know, for no more money than we have for our advertising budget, it might be better well spent. But if you can get the list and you can get on their social media and you can make up some meetings and you know you can make it worth a lot more than just setting up a table.
So let's talk a little bit about demographics. You know, what's the primary demographic for the fort? I would guess male.
True, makes sense. 50 plus, probably.
Some families,
Families.
50 plus, yeah. So,
If Carl was here, I'm sure he'd be able to tell.
yes, he probably could.
Carl's not here.
I used to work at 36 Park Ranger many years ago. It was kind of a whole, you know, it's a lot of times it was family, they want to bring their children.
Mhm.
A lot of times, and then sometimes it was a couple, it was just really.
Runs the gamut.
From my memory, yeah. Granted, it's been a few years since, but.
I don't know if this is a demographic. I'd also like to think that it's a stop to get out of the car between two places. So if I'm driving from St. Louis to Wichita, and what am I going to do along the way? I want to hit everything that's important along the way. It would be that kind of stuff.
And you can
So
see
it's-
as you're driving.
Right. So that it's road tourists, I don't know how to say that, but road trippers.
That aren't necessarily gonna stay, but just stop, stretch their legs, walk around.
See, you know, oh, it's a National Historic Site, National Park Service, get my stand.
So is the fort something that just probably doesn't draw people to Fort Scott to stay the weekend or make a longer day trip? I always kind of figured that it was one of those things, although ideally it only takes you what, 3 hours or so to go through it.
30 minutes, 3 hours. Just
Yeah,
how,
just
how much you're gonna
depends,
stop
yeah.
and read.
Right.
How many times you've been?
And how your kids are acting.
Yeah, exactly.
30 minutes.
Yeah.
And I do think it is, because I think it's like everything else. Oh, I'm a nerd for national parks, so I stop and then I'm like, hey, did you look around? I didn't know there was a Gordon Park. I didn't know this. Oh, there's a trolley. And so then, oh, there's lots of things. Oh, let's stay. Or, you know, next time I'm going to stay overnight because I want to do these other things.
I get
That's what
that
I
a lot.
hear a lot.
I get that.
People do not realize how much there is to do here once
Yeah.
you start.
So they came for one thing and then they're
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna come back.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we could plan a whole week for them if we,
Yeah, we sure
Mhm.
did.
Oh yeah.
if we knew ahead of time they were
I'm
coming.
embarrassed sometimes when someone says, what should I do on here? And I start rattling off and pretty soon they're like, I didn't even take notes, stop talking. But I think yes, I think some people come for the first visit and are surprised, come back and stay longer.
I don't think there's anything that we can do that's standalone in this market, in this little
Right.
market. Right? You know, the art show that's coming up to 3rd and 4th. Well, to me, we ought to be having paid social media to support the art show and the candlelight tour at the same time. And we ought to target Springfield and Kansas City and Wichita and help them supplement. I know candlelight sometimes sells out, but I don't think we do, at least to my knowledge, I've never heard that we are doing paid social media to support and grow and promote events. I don't think we did any to support the bike race or the Gordon Parks Festival. You know, those are things that when we get an organizer, somebody willing to put forth the effort to put an event together in our community, we ought to be bending over backwards, spending a couple of $100 to help them grow that and bring people that wouldn't otherwise have a clue about it. So I mean, I think we need to do lots more of that, and this 3rd, 4th weekend ought to be one of those weekends where we're, you know, packaging the things that are going on that weekend.
My daughter's
Agreed.
been kind of helping us with some of our social, Instagram and all, and it's been amazing already, some of the difference. And I think we need to do more of that, and not even just pay, but just do some hashtags and it gets out.
Yeah.
There's sites out there.
A thing we used at E3 was influencers. And so are there Gordon Parks, are there people who are influential connected to Gordon Parks, okay? So it doesn't mean that, you know, we need Gordon Parks' son. It's somebody who would push and tout, you know, and influence their followers for Gordon Parks or for the fort. I can really see it with the fort. Is it, you know, some wilderness travel writer who likes sport, you know, whatever, that you would partner with them, and ideally you don't want to pay that person, and you can't always get free, you know, kind of thing. But that's how you sell, you know, you sell meat, is you get barbecue guys to cook your steaks on their social media, and then all their people jump online and buy it, and that'd be a great way to reach people that are like-minded.
The Highway 3 lady.
If you saw this ad, mention
Yeah, mention, yeah, and we had a way to
That's what the
to
Highway
follow what
Tony
came from
Parker.
it.
They've had enough honorees at the Gordon Parks
Right.
that, you know,
Yeah.
those
Right.
folks get out there on their social, start talking about
Yes.
this thing. That's,
We actually had a couple that do a vlog, and they were at the little milking center. They didn't know anything about the Gordon Parks, if I'm telling this right, but they ended up going to Gordon Park and then wrote an entire story about that experience, which of course I shared on our Visit Fort Scott page. But yeah,
We had
I love that.
over the summer, we had a camp in Wichita. Since COVID, they couldn't do the Olympics. So Wichita News Group, they came and interviewed us, and it was on the Wichita thing. And I told them to go to Parks and Milken, and they said they'll come back sometime. And then other things too, but they specifically those two. So.
You know, I'll tell you, one of the most thanked foretelling about places in Fort Scott is the Lowell Milken Center. When I tell people about it and start explaining to them a little bit about the story of Irena Sendler and these young people and all that stuff, they're like, I gotta go. I gotta be there. I gotta go see this, gotta find out what this is all about. Same thing with the fort. There's gobs and gobs and gobs of stories that have been told over the years about the fort and the things that went on at the fort and all that stuff. Our national cemetery. Maybe we need to come up with some kind of a promotion for Stick Out Belly, the Indian chief that's buried out there. Get people to come into Fort Scott to see these certain little things and explain, and then then explore.
And how the Confederates are off-centered.
The Confederates, I
People
mean,
don't know that, yeah.
the National Cemetery, to my knowledge, is the only one that has Confederate headstones in it that is any of the national cemeteries, because they removed all the others. And they got the Indians, the Confederates, and Union Actors. So we have a lot of interesting things that we can pick and choose and pull some experiences to put on social media, kind of like your agritourism thing. For as far as your social media, if you were to put together just 4 little blocks and give somebody the directions to where Stick Out Belly is buried. I mean, I don't know what the Park Service would necessarily frown upon that or not, for as far as having that many numbers of people walking out across the cemetery, or whatever. But
Open to the public.
yeah,
I'd build on that too, is that when you take Little Milken Center as an example, it has unsung heroes, it has history, it has astronomy, it has all kinds of things, but it also is about teachers. And teachers are
that's the
probably a
other one.
great target audience to talk about the unsung hero part plus Gordon Parks. And then there's civil rights in there and the Holocaust, all sorts of things that you can build off of that people don't get by the Little Milken Center, just the words, the Little Milken Center Center of Unsung Heroes. And so there's just lots of things to build. And again, looking at influencers, if you can find the people that touch those groups, it's a great way to get them to help us. There's usually an exchange of some kind, free hotel at the sleep in or something like that.
Well,
Free dinner at Crooner's Lounge or something.
but to back up to Frank's point about the different assets that we have at the Wichita Women's Show, I would talk a little bit about some of the things around Fort Scott, but the one thing, just like what Frank mentioned, was that people tend to gravitate toward was the Lowell Milken Unsung Heroes that really captured their attention. whenever we started discussing that. So, yeah, I agree.
It's amazing we have all these things in one little place.
One
Yeah.
little
When you
bitty
think
town.
about the big Kansas road trip, and you think about, okay, you're gonna go to, Baxter Springs. And you compare what you have to do in a day in Baxter Springs, no offense to my friends in Baxter Springs. And then you compare what you have to do, you need more than a day in Fort Scott on the big Kansas road trip. Not every community is like that.
Right.
Lewisburg doesn't have a ton of tourism. Nice town, nice people, but they have a cider mill and very little other tourism, whereas we have tons of tourism. Just getting people here to see, has to enter hotels.
So here we are, darn near an hour into this meeting. As most of our meetings have been, we've got a lot of ideas and a lot of things, but what we don't have in front of us is a 2022 marketing plan that has been put together by our paid director that says, here are from my first 6 months working here are all the things I learned about our community, and here's my plan for next year. Here's the things that I really want to attack. Here's our, I had an exchange with Jackson and said, okay, strategy, cost, here's the target market I'm going after. Here's what I hope to produce out of this. Here's how I'm going to measure it. Like, we should be weighing in on strategy and not going through a meeting after meeting when we only meet 4 times a year, just kind of throwing ideas out on the table without giving such a broad, we have all these things to do, but we should be reviewing our paid guy's strategy and providing advisement on the strategies that we're putting in place. And I'm happy to be a partner in the developing of any of those, but this is a 2-page list and we're an hour in and we're still on the top half of the second page.
Yeah, we get throwing a lot of ideas around.
So I don't
let's
think
move
that's
on through.
fruitful for our time.
But isn't this his plan for 2022?
There's a lot of elements to it.
A lot of elements.
It's not 100% planned for 2022. We can talk about the upcoming events, the big Kansas road trip and the YP summit, the reunion and all that. Bill mentioned at the August meeting that, he'd like to see a February tour, or tournament at Laroche. Well, we have that. I spoke to John Hill and he has 3 weekends, at Laroche. That he's gonna bring in several out-of-town teams. He's really hoping to expand that. Some of the other things that are coming up in items, just so you know about them, moving fast through here, the potential events, upcoming Kansas Ram, it's a truck club, mud run. I spoke with Diane Grillhart at Bourbon County Fairgrounds, and they're actually trying to figure out how they can do some more events there that would help bring more people to Bourbon County and Fort Scott. So we actually have a meeting first week of December to discuss that a little bit more. Told you all about the Powell Gun Show. Still talking to him, and that's slow going. As far as, we also talked about a Laroche bubble tournament. Well, outside of February, we're almost all booked. The new Bemidji coach said that they probably were not going to participate. But then again, all Laroche events have to be cleared through the high school March through June. But we'll continue working on that.
We're having our Lavender Festival, June 18th.
Sorry?
Our festival, our 5th Lavender Festival is the 20th, June 18th. Lavender Fest.
And of course, we don't have all the events on this. This is just things that are sticking out here, that are potential. But, you all pretty much know my focus. It's right there, from tour groups, conferences, so on and so forth. But I did want to mention that I met with Marcia Roselle with the Manhattan Convention, CBB, visited with her on getting more bus tours in 2022. For some reason, we were not members of Tour Kansas in 2021. Normally we sign up for those, I believe that's probably January or February. But she said she'd really like to help me, try and get some bus tours, coming into Fort Scott. So that's an appealing idea. They actually represent some of the communities around Kansas, and they go to shows instead of, each individual. They represent all of us. So, I think that's probably a good idea.
Sounds cost effective.
It's cost effective. I think it's $150 to join that. Sports KS, same thing. So, which we were not a part of this year. We need to be. Gravel grinding, something new that I want to work on for 2022. I met with a fellow named Leland Danes. He started what was called the Dirty Kansas, which is gravel riders on bicycles. They have 2,700 people show up to Emporia, Kansas last year for this thing. Now, and I could be wrong, but I believe that's just riders. He and I had a really good conversation. And he actually, we talked about other races. We also talked about a place for their riders to come and possibly do a warm up, like just getting used to the terrain. And I said, you know, we'd be all for that. But he also was telling me how many thousands of people, and I don't have that number in front of me, ride on gravel every year. He had some folks coming in from South America to Emporia last month just to ride this thing. Has people coming in from Europe, and it's amazing how this little industry's grown. But his vision is to make Kansas the capital of that sport and of that pastime. So we're working together. I've been talking to some folks locally, Chad Holt, Matt Mason, who are local riders. And by the way, if you know any other local folks that like to ride gravel, please tell me, let me know, send me an email. Because we need these folks to buy in and help us figure out some of the logistics of this. But the idea is most of these people will come to your community, and they don't normally come from just next door. They're coming in from all across the country and will stay the weekend or several days to do this. And they do it several times, and then they eat at the restaurants, stay in the hotels, that kind of thing. So, but I was really enthused about those two conversations as far as the buses and gravel bicycling. The Southeast Kansas Tourism region, just to let you know, they want to do some shared booths. A couple of them that they were talking about, the Kansas City Boat Sport and Travel Show. So instead of me going to that may be a Southeast Kansas Tourism where they represent. We're also working on regional racks so that Fort Scott has information in Pittsburgh and Columbus and Emporia and wherever else it's considered part of the Southeast Kansas Tourism region. So in all these towns, and then they have information in Fort Scott. We've worked out a deal with Pete's Convenience Stores for regional right now, and hopefully we'll be expanding that out to a little farther and a little farther as we go, as we gain some money to be able to reinvest in this. So I'm pretty excited about that work that we've been doing. As far as 2022 tourism marketing, I would like some input from our advisory board, some ideas. I have some ideas. I'd like to hear your ideas. What does everybody think our primary demographic is?
social media is always a great.
I agree. I do.
I like the term pleasure travel. People that are going and doing a weekend thing, whether you're a history buff or a Lavender fan or whichever, but the people who travel around just enjoying different things. That's very, I don't know how you market to those people. I mean, you have to get more specific than that
You do.
to market to them. Again, I think you find influencers in things related to our assets and help them mine their social media.
And like you said, like more towards actual events going on and targeting.
And that's something that I've never done. I appreciate that because I guess it's crossed my mind and I've seen people write and I've shared that whenever I've seen it, but I've never really sought influencers out. So, I think that's a great suggestion. Thank you.
I kind of feel like we need to make a list of our markets, of the segments of the tourism business that exist that we feel like are opportunities for our community. And sports, meetings, bus, travel writers, history, events. We just identify those segments of the tourism industry that we need to work or we feel like are opportunities, and go through and list 1 or 2 or 3 strategies for the year of things that we can accomplish or we feel like we need to do under each one of those subsections that we feel like we should pursue. And I think whether you do a SWOT analysis or whatever, I think we just got to break it down and have some kind of plan of, how we're going to put these in our day-to-day work on a market by market or a sub-market basis, instead of going, maybe if outdoors is our thing, are we going to focus on camping and fishing and hunting? Are we going to support outfitters and help market the deer hunts and turkey hunts and those people that are all over right now? But I do think that's an example of how we've got to identify our segments and just figure out what we want to do to have the most impact and measure.
So if and it was said here earlier that we have such a diversified, so many diversified tourism assets that, the same people that are interested in, let's say, the fort, are they 100% in on going to see different products that are made from lavender? Some of them will be, but is there a way to tie that all together, or are we niche marketing to each segment?
I think you have to reach each segment. You have
On
to
its own.
fish in the pond where the segments are. But you have to cross promote once you have, for example, under my sports strategy, I would try to identify somebody to fill in maybe one basketball tournament that's a 3-day, maybe a softball tournament where we already have all these baseball tournaments and I've done a good job on that. There's other sports out there. Maybe it's volleyball. So maybe we need to have an off baseball season. Maybe we need to have 3 tournaments of another sport in any given year. So we need to find maybe Michael Cook, hosts a JUCO tournament maybe there's a basketball showcase tournament to bring in high school athletes for 3 days. I don't know. But maybe we need to take that sports market and identify 3 things that we need to do to supplement what we already have and what we're already really good at. And so we get these tournaments planned. Well, what do? We send those registered teams of those tournaments the promotional stuff about the fort and the lavender patch and all the things that they can do while they're here during that basketball tournament. And that's the type of breakdown and attract people in for a specific reason, and then share the assets that we have in our community. But we have to start with identifying where the opportunities are in the sports segment, pursue those, and then
Where you're dropping that hook.
Okay. And same way with Same way with the history market. I mean, we've got the Gordon Parks and we've got the Bull Milking Center. We've got the Fort. We've got some great historical assets. We got to figure out how are we going to, where's that pond that we need to fish in? And once we start to get some nibbles on our bobber, then we've got to market to those people the other things that they can do in order to go out to the elk farm. I mean, so I think by just broad base and not identifying markets and not targeting those people and targeting on a broad base level, you're less likely to hit your targets. So I think we ought to identify what our strategies are, and maybe we won't all agree on what those strategies are, but pick a top 5 and really have some specific things that we're going to do this year to try to increase our visitors to the market in those 5 or 7 or whatever number of submarkets we identify as strengths that we really feel like we could bring people to town for.
At the TIAC, I know this is kind of off subject to what you asked, but at the TIAC conference, did they have any suggestions on current marketing trends or like, I don't know what the sessions were, but were there any?
They were pretty broad this year, it seemed to me. Now, this being my first year going to these, but I think they were fairly broad. I mean, they talked a little bit about social media, and a lot of it was spent talking about coming back, and it was for communities that were really hurting. And I think Fort Scott weathered it fairly well last year. So, yeah, I guess that answers that, I hope. Any other ideas or thoughts on that?
I think if you're parked your car in the middle of Woven Park and go on Google and say things to do within an hour away, just try it. I did it sitting here, things to do near me right now, and I got visits fortscott.com. I got vacation ideas, 4 things to do in Fort Scott, 10 best things to do in Fort Scott. If those things come up in Overland Park, then somebody would go, oh, what's this Fort Scott? I didn't realize that was only an hour away. And look at all these cool things that I can do. To make that happen, though, it requires a little geofencing, and that costs money. And you got to figure out who's going to do that, and who's going to host that. You can pay Google or you can pay somebody else, but when I go somewhere, that's what I do. I don't think I'm alone on that. I go to Google and I say, what's there to do here? What's there to eat here? What's there to drink here? Or whatever. Pretty simple that way. I also look for reviews on things. The reason to go somewhere. How do you get? You're also doing public relations, I understand. So how do you get Fort Scott on the map? You don't want it to be for something evil, but if you can have something that's really good that happens here, or some famous person that did something here that's newsworthy, other than canceling parades.
Yeah, we don't want that.
Question. Do we have a contract with somebody that could help us keep our website so it's not static, so it's not the same all the time, so that there was occasionally new content posted on the website? I noticed that our events calendar, the only event on our events calendar is the karaoke at the brew house on Friday nights.
Help is coming.
Okay, good.
We just, I believe we've hired someone to assist with that and some other projects. So,
because I think the algorithm, the search algorithms, the more things that you are linked to that are linked to you, and they're clicking through the algorithms, read that stuff. So if you have stale content on your site, then you're not feeding people in, and you're not viewed as much. So I think that could be a real critical thing to have maybe update our site. I mean, I think we have a great site, but if the content never changes, then you're not getting the views.
It's glaring to me.
Yeah,
it's a glaring issue,
I say
and
we
so
do that all time to the website.
Yeah. Yeah. We do pretty good with social media, but we've got to get that updated. So, yeah. Anything else as far as 2022 marketing? This is your opportunity.
I do think what Bill said a little bit ago about goals and things like that. I think it would be a good idea for you to continue to have some way to be able to report off. You know, not just it's not just about how much money was generated from heads and beds, but also you know, has there been any change in, you know, like we talked about, visits to the website or likes or hits or whatever, some way. I think you should probably come up with something. I know that, you know, you inherited Ally's goals, and that you didn't feel like they fit very well, but you
Right.
still need to have something, some way to be able to show value.
Okay.
Well, and some of that correlation, that identifying the markets, the things that we're going to intentionally and strategically do. And if one of those is to promote the fort, then we use the fort numbers. And if one of those is to really do a better job of exposing people to Lowell Milken Center, why don't we looking at Lowell Milken Center numbers plus the fort numbers plus the Gordon Parks numbers, you know, all of those, ask for that. I mean, we want those people to be our partners. We want that line of communication. So if we're not getting those visitor numbers and using those as, okay, is our promotions working or are they not working, then we're just blind in the deal. So I think we need to use those, every piece of data we can get our hands on to know whether what we're doing is working or not.
And maybe for you, Lindsay, every business, if they don't already, in town, no matter what they do, if somebody walks through the door that you don't know, you should say, how'd you hear about us, or how'd you find out about us? Because if they say it's because I went to fortscott.com or visited Fort Scott or something like that, we need to, you know, make note of that. If it's through a trade show, we need to know that. And the only way that information can trickle up is if people are feeding it. So I think somehow or another, Jackson needs to have some kind of conduit to the businesses to say that when we do get tourists, why are they coming here? What drew them to our town? You know, at the brewery, if I ask somebody, I recognize that I don't recognize them, and they say, you know, you're not from here, you know, what brought you to town? And they'll say, well, a funeral, you know, okay. There's a lot of that. Actually, there's a
We
lot
need a
of
market
that,
team.
you know?
Finance.
Yeah.
Let's do all your.
It may not be a bad idea. It may be that they're here for a wedding. While they're here, to get them to want to explore. What is there to do here? And that's why I say, if I punch in things to do near me and I'm in Fort Scott, it should be the things that we want them to do. You know, a TripAdvisor, perfect order, 1 through 5, exactly the way it is in our brochure. So that's good. You know, we're doing our job there, but it's got to be something like that.
Okay.
Well, let me make sure that my brain's tracking correctly. We're talking about two completely different things here. And for as far as the items and places you want people to go see, as to what the market that we're looking at targeting the specific markets. As in Bill, you pointed out, do we want to look at sports? Do we want to look at this? Are we talking the same thing? Or are we talking two different things? Because my mind just blanked out on said that you were talking about two completely different things.
I think it should be both. I think that if there's a demographic that we want to hit, I think it should it should be the demographic
Targeted.
of people that have disposable income, whatever that demographic is. You know, I'm sure
Travel.
that's who. Yeah, probably travel. You know, who goes on weekend getaways. Not, you know, we're not looking for campers necessarily. So, you know, whatever that demographic is, but we also need to
That's
track.
right. I was a weekender.
We need to track, you know, why people come here and what's working and what's not working. What's the draw?
Well, I know this, you wanna target people who are mobile, active, have money to spend. So where do we find those people? So that's what we're gonna have to work on.
I like Bill's idea too, and maybe it's a subcommittee or a separate brainstorming meeting or something where we sit down and say, okay, let's come up with a list of the top, I don't know, if it's 3, 5, 9, or 12.
Right.
Selling points, and then who do you market that to? So that we can get you down to, these are our targets. That's what we think is sellable. Cause there's some things I think are really cool, that's kind of hard to sell, attract people to it, as opposed to let's attract them to the lavender patch and then I hope they go that place too, kind of thing. I think that's a way we could advise you and be helpful to you, is if we sat down and identified our key things and the market for those key attractions.
That'd be great.
And it could, I think festivals, you have to think about festivals, attracting people here for them. Whether it's Gordon Parks or let's have an Unsung Hero Festival, or, you know, whatever, Pioneer Harvest, whatever it is.
Unsung Hero Festival.
All for it.
Big food truck.
Festival,
Yeah.
truck festival.
We went to
Beer
Neil and
festival.
they had three blocks of food trucks, one block.
One of the
Yeah.
One of the
Kansas City
things-
has a macaroni and cheese truck
Yeah.
festival, so there's not just one kind of.
Have you heard about, Elk Falls event they had last weekend?
I feel like I have.
The Outhouse Festival.
That's right.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's right.
All these,
They had like 24 or 25 outhouses decorated all through town and out in the bushes, and everybody comes in and they judge them. Every, you know,
It's great.
yeah.
the people that show us do the judging.
Except really, yeah.
Yeah.
Follow twine.
It's like the largest ball of twine, or the cows. Remember the parade of cows, and each town got them, and then Pittsburgh
Oh,
did
yeah.
coal. They
We
pulled
need a cow
buckets
on the
and
roof, cause everybody's always wanting to see
Yeah.
a picture of the cow.
cow on the roof.
That's right.
Then
From the
Pittsburgh
flood.
did coal buckets, and then they did footballs, and then so people run around and get their picture taken with their favorite football, and it brings people to town.
Something off the wall, different.
We got a double hole around the
Sunflowers.
corner.
Scoot around the river.
Aren't you fancy?
Oh,
Two-seater.
yeah.
Two-seater.
A two-seater.
Two-seater,
Go together.
so you can sit next to somebody.
Old hands.
Yeah.
Talk about
Chit
things.
chat.
So
Rob
the
Harrington
girls-
was
the
gonna
girls can
come
go
by,
together.
but, is not.
I guess not. I talked to him, and I've talked to him a couple of times, and Frank has talked to him. And I'm gonna go back. I've hit on this before. Dave Martin never had a clue about tourism, and Jeremy Frazier, not a tourism manager. These public administrators are city administrators, and we're gonna get a new one, and they're gonna show up, and they're gonna be dealing with streets and infrastructure and all of these things that are Mark McCoy is figuring out is absolutely consuming. And I've been pretty frank with Jackson during the course of this meeting about, expectation of things we could be doing better. But Jackson really doesn't have a partner. Jackson really doesn't have anybody that he's working with every day. I know he has some conversations with Mark, but Mark doesn't have a vision of tourism, and city administrators don't have a marketing class that they go to in city administrator school. So they have no time in this industry, very seldom. We've never had one. And my experience in cities have never been in a city where the city administrator had a tourism background or a sales background or a marketing background. They don't live in that world. So the conversations we've had with Rob has been in markets where he's been a part of the CBD, where the Economic Development Organization and the chamber and the tourism organization are kind of all under one umbrella. And in my conversation with Rob, he has a pretty good vision of what he would like to see economic development through tourism. He's got a lot of great ideas. Was at a market in Iowa. Is that where he was, in Iowa?
Yeah, I believe it was.
Where he had just an amazing CBB director. So he's seen somebody and had access and worked hand in hand with somebody who knew what to do and how to do it. And I feel like that's something that we ought to consider. Frank has brought up several times that, having this separate agency out there that is kind of more autonomous, that is in charge of tourism, would be something that we ought to explore and consider. And so you can talk next, but I kind of think that we ought to consider asking the city or having Rob present to us or to the city to move tourism over to, and Jackson, we've mentioned it to Jackson, we're certainly not considering his role and his position. He would certainly be part of the move if we were to move tourism over to Ready Bourbon County. I would think part of that move, we would ask the county to implement a countywide transient guest tax. So Timber Hills, and if Watco, TNC is a public facility, the places outside the city limits, people are paying transient guest tax the same as they are inside the city limits, so that we can have a little bit more money to market our outdoor resources. So I think there's lots of wins involved with considering a proposal or suggesting to the city commission to consider a proposal that Ready take over the reins of tourism. So he can have somebody that's in the business of economic development and has a tourism mind to kind of partner with and help him. Somebody who's dealt with marketing plans and a lot of this stuff before. So that's the conversations we've had, and I would like to, you talk to him.
Absolutely. I have said this, I've said it repeatedly, very, very set my way on this thought, is that tourism needs to have an autonomous position from being ran by organizations, groups, whatever. And that's where, when the thought came out in this conversations about moving actually tourism over into Ready with the economic development, I said, that works. That works because.
Why does it work?
Because if you have an organization like the City of Fort Scott, Chamber, Kiwanis, I don't care who you are, it is a focus on their movement, whatever it is that they're doing specifically. The economic development position for the county, Bourbon County, that position is looking to improve everything within the county. And if we are looking at everything inside the county as opposed to one entity inside of the city, or not promoting outside of the city with anything that we have, all the hunting, all the fishing, all the different camping, all the different things we have. Having that ran by an independent source that has knowledge in marketing, knowledge in economic development, and what is going on, has their thumb on everything that's going on in the county, that makes sense to me.
They're gonna have a grant writer on staff. That's somebody.
This is an organization that hasn't been in place 6 months. Period. They haven't been in place 6 months. And I don't know how they're gonna organize this, but I think that Rob has an incredibly, not full plate, important plate that we don't need his attention diverted from. Because if he can accomplish half of what he's working on, we all definitely benefit. That I just feel like we've had this conversation, that maybe in a few months, when they have a year under their belt, and again, I think they should come here and talk to us, because what's their scheme here? Are they gonna add more staff? And by the way, the taxpayers fund that. As far as I know, there's no outside funding unless they get grants or something to do that. The taxpayer funds all of this. And so I just feel like, I don't think that Bedco, I'm still gonna call them Bedco, that the new Bedco has any track record yet, and I don't know why they would divert their attention from the huge projects that they're working on. Whereas we have and maybe in 6 months we'll feel differently, because those projects have moved down the road. And, you know, we have a person who's nearly autonomous. That's what I think you were just saying, is that the leadership, the history here has been the leadership allows them to perform their job, gives them guidance if they need or ask for it, but in general, they aren't hands-on every day with tourism, whether it was Jackson or Allie or Larry or whoever came before. I just feel like,
And if that were true, that the tourism was singularly focused on the city, then why is Betsy and I here?
right?
Because we're Black Dog's Farm and Lavender Patch are both in the county, and Betsy has been on this committee from the beginning, as far as I know.
I just think it's premature with that. That's, you know, that, I don't know I hope they're a 10-person organization with $1 million worth of outside revenue in 6 months. I think that'd be great. But right now, I think they have huge responsibility, and that's why Rob might be the front face, but the board of Vetco or something should give us a strategy, or give the community a strategy and a direction of 12-month plan at least, to say, hey, we hope to have 3 employees and do all these other things. I just feel like it's a burden. We aren't failing, and so I think a burden that is premature for them, in my view.
Good point.
One question, or at least questioning the statement you made, your statement about the performance being done by taxpayer dollars. Were you referencing the transient guest tax dollars at all on that, or were you just what they have?
Vetco's funding comes from the city and the county. That's what now I would assume that if we were to send tourism over there, that the transient guest tax dollars would go with them.
Yes, and
I meant that
continue to pay that.
Vetco today is funded by tax dollars. So do we need to take an action here, like invite them to a board meeting, or what action do we want to take in this conversation?
I don't know, does it require us to make a motion to ask somebody to come make a presentation to us, or just put it on the agenda?
We need to advise our director if we wanted to entertain something. I would assume.
Here's a question related to your question. Do we want to identify a subcommittee and kind of deal with the marketing plan, some markets that we've talked about, and developing that plan? And if so, we want to do that through the course of December and meet again ahead of February. That would be an opportunity if we wanted to do that and kind of get together as a group to put together our 2022 plan. Then maybe we have a couple of meetings before third week of December, get this whole group together again to go back through what we put together as a subcommittee or something like that.
I think so.
That reasonable?
Sounds good to me.
Is that reasonable to you?
Reasonable.
I will be glad to help on the 2022 plan subcommittee, whatever that looks like. Honestly, I have a lot to say about it.
So do we need a motion or anything on this, or what do we just?
I think we can plan a look at the calendar, plan a meeting before Christmas to, we can get whoever just wants to help on the 2022 marketing plan. Are you on? You haven't said much. That's a good thing for you or not?
Sure, I'm
What's your next?
always willing to listen.
I think you need to make sure you have a quorum of board members present, or you're gonna have to post it.
Okay.
And why don't you, and I think everyone at this table would happily participate for you, but you might take a look at the members of this board and pick out 4 people or whatever is in a quorum, and that, you know, different viewpoints, and people already volunteered, and let us know who you'd like to have at a meeting, and kind of a brainstorming whiteboard.
You have
So
one
it-
of 8 board members.
So we'd have to publish it as a work session, an advisory board work session.
If you had more than 5, you have 4, but not 5.
All right.
do it ex officio members.
Count twice.
Carl's ex officio.
I'm in.
Me too. Whatever you need.
Okay.
But I hope you get a variety of people. There are people who aren't here to volunteer that will probably really great at that.
Very good.
I volunteer for.
I do too. But, you know,
Because he's not here.
yeah, we'll teach him to skip a beat.
Anything else?
Yes, Mr.
We didn't ever finish the conversation about, did we wanna table a discussion about Bourbon County Ready till the next meeting, or do we wanna have him reach out to have them come and talk to us about it, or just because I have one viewpoint, you two have another, doesn't mean that it's.
Show up in December. That will be.
Our next
Have you
meeting is
met
in
with
February.
Rob?
Oh, yeah, Rob and I work together all the time.
So you've had a conversation about that?
Yes, he mentioned it to me. Mainly, we work together. Most of our conversations are about ongoing projects that we're working together on.
Would it be possible for you to come up with the pros and cons and bring that to the next meeting here? Based on your conversations with them? How do you see it?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said, sir. Not that I need to, but I am on the Ready board, so I wear many hats, and, Rob's the executive director, but there's a board of directors that he answers to your point. So I didn't hear what were you saying something about Rob coming here, or Rob getting with?
Rob having conversations with Jackson and potentially having a more active for Jackson to be part of that organization, to have that conversation. So for Jackson to come up with reasons why to and why not to do that, because I can think of reasons why not to, and Rhonda has thought of reasons why not to.
They have reasons why we should. I mean,
We
it's
should, but
two
I mean,
sides.
if there's a legitimate argument there, then I think it should be made.
Sure, you meant conversation, no argument. And don't forget that any decision that would be made would first have to start with the city commissioners who Jackson is employed by.
Right.
So before I would go to Ready, I would think that you would want to have some sort of conversation with them to see if the city commissioners would even entertain it.
Have the city commission, have they had this discussion with Rob or with anyone else?
I'm not aware that in regards to Jackson working there.
It shouldn't have to be personal him, but tourism moving
Yeah, I'm
over
sorry,
under
no, I'm not aware of more than one person, but you cannot do anything without a majority of commissioners discussing things. So I'm aware of one person has had a conversation with Jackson.
Because typically we, as a group, will propose something to the commission, and that would certainly have to go that way. But, before we propose anything, I think that I don't have enough information on it. I quite frankly don't know what they do, but what that organization does,
Who's that?
whatever the name is.
Ready. And the other thing is, what's their long-term?
Sure.
I feel like this is, I don't think you're in there, I feel like
No,
this
I
is
heard that.
premature for them.
Yeah. So Ready is one person, to your point, it's Rob. And I don't know, I haven't heard of any long-term objectives outside of anything right now other than economic development 100%. And Rob has been working very hard on trying to assist in getting the hospital reopened. He's worked very hard on that. And he has another big project that he's working on. So those two things are taking a massive amount of his time to work on.
And I think too that, I know the land bank's in discussion here and putting in
Yes.
Bedco and things like that. And that is my point, it's not about Rob or tourism directly, it's to say, hey, is this premature to add yet another another responsibility on the plate of Ready? no matter who it is this even in their 12-month horizon of something they would want to divert attention to? Things like, that's my point, is it could be the greatest idea, and we can't lose sight of the fact that commissioners can vote to do this whether we even discuss it.
True.
In our
You know.
conversations with Rob, he has in his vision for that organization some level of tourism-related work, regardless of whether he's in the same office with the tourism director or not. I mean, quality of life, destination development, and all of those types of things. He has said over and over and over in his presentations that people want to work at the same, the attributes of a community where people want to live, visit, all of those things are together. And so tourism is kind of a hand in that, of destination development and having a nice downtown that's active and alive, that people want to live here, people want to visit here. So he has got some vision of having some tourism related economic development coming out of his office, regardless of whether he's got the tourism director on his team or across the, not in the same office or in a separate office, I guess is the best way to put it.
Danger there, and it's clearly us just talking, is we could head into a duplication of effort again. I hope we wouldn't do that. I hope we're smarter than the last time we did that, or the time before that we did it. But the thing that if this is already in their strategy, then.
Well, I'm sorry, just clarify, when you say it's in their strategy, you're right, it's in his strategy. The board has not agreed to that in any way, shape, or form. So, and I, sometimes now that I have this new epiphany of life, that the chairman of this board is you. Okay, then to me, the protocol should be that you folks agree to have the chairman of this board go speak to that board as your representative. I mean, that would, to me, that's a step, and have this chairman go speak to the commission.
Well,
Unless you want to
I
come as a
think, Mark,
group.
I think it's backwards, because I think this was, the approach was, Bedco wants to talk to this board.
Who said that?
I think that's the way I understood it from you, Bill. Is
I've
that there have been
initiated-
conversations, and Rob was gonna come and talk to us.
I've initiated the conversations with Rob. We had the discussion. I involved Frank in the discussion. So we had the discussion. So I asked Rob if he would come and kind of share what his long-term, what he kind of sees. So it wasn't anything official other than if he's seeing that that's in his long-term plan, then I wanted to put that on the table.
And to elaborate upon that is that if tourism, our long-term vision with tourism, if within economic development of Bourbon County, through Bedco, through the board, through the insights and everything, if that made sense, if what he was talking about, if that made sense long-term, to where we didn't have just a city, a city person, but it was big scale, it was a county scale, and fit into his economic development platforms, and making the communities, using tourism to market, having that platform that Heads and Beds is actually paying to market to the outside world, so that the businesses and all that, the taxpayers aren't really paying that money, but they're all benefited from. So that's where the conversation, when Bill and I had the conversation and it came around, it started making sense to me. If Ready and their economic development platform is doing these things, then putting tourism in there to benefit that would make sense to me. So, not the 6 months, okay, I get that, but does it fit long term? So that's where the conversation, that's where bringing it to the board here, talking about it, without ever thinking about ever going to you guys until we talk about what we see.
Yeah.
And then take it to even the city commissioners and to the Ready and the appropriate people through the channels. So.
Somebody's going to.
That's my granddaughter calling me.
Oh.
So.
Important business.
It's important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot to discuss, a lot to hash out. And so, I can see why there's such a quandary.
Well, I think we're back to the same question, which is, does this board need to make a plan or take an action here? We had a discussion, are we gonna take action from it? That's my point. And what is that action then?
I would suggest that we reach out to Rob to present to the organization here, maybe not in an open public forum, but individually to share the ideas of what he's thinking about the future of his economic development. I don't necessarily think that needs to be public information generally out in the open.
If your board meets, it is public and open to the public.
I understand that, but I'm not talking about the board meeting. I'm talking about Rob meeting with a board member and sharing information. So
Which, that's already happened, right? You guys have met with him.
we have spoke with him, but
We got the cart in front of the horse again.
Oh, did he?
So, I think based on what Mark said, I think it would probably be best to table the discussion until we have a hospital or don't have a hospital. And then we can relook at it at such time, because I think if he's a one-man show, he's got his plate full right now. And I don't think that you know,
Do you think that's a conversation that you as the chairman should have with Rob? I'm not saying go to him and say, hey, I think that you and he should be, you from this board officially with him, and hear his strategy, hear his thought, give him your side or another side to say, we want a hospital before we do anything else, let's get a hospital here. And just a thought as a way to
or as Mark
kind of
said,
bridge
maybe
the informal to
the
formal.
chairman of that board might be too, because even though, and I don't doubt anybody who's in economic development, if they're not thinking about tourism, then
We got the wrong person.
yeah, they're the right person. And the same thing about somebody who's in a tourism role, if they're not thinking about economic development, then it's wrong too. But I think it should be something that's discussed at a later date, because I just think the timing is wrong. The timing of it is not good right now. We are just now getting Jackson to where he's comfortable with what he's doing, I think, and now it's kind of time to move up there. For him to switch gears right now would be rough on him. I think it would be rough on what's his name too?
Rob.
Yeah, because he's got other things going on. But I'd be happy to meet with the chairman of, who is that?
Ready? Greg Motley.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's the president of Ready and Benefit. They're two separate 501c3, 501c6.
Very handy.
Real quickly, there was a brief something said about land bank.
Mm-hmm.
So land bank is not something we're trying to turn over to pretty much anybody else. We're just trying to identify other players that should be on the land bank and how it can move forward. And yes, Rob's been asked to be on that board.
Okay.
So we're not turning it over to Ready.
Bedco.
We're not turning it over to Bedco.
Okay.
So I just wanted to clear that up.
Okay, good.
I wear many
But again,
hats.
puts Rob in another plate on his table.
Yeah. Also, we have Craig Campbell, was excited about the opportunity to be on there and really wants to. And you want to talk about a great volunteer? It makes me look forward to volunteering, because he's a great volunteer, and he's asked to be on there, and he was a name that was brought up. So it's more complicated because it has to be reorganized, because it was written in such a way that has the 5 city commissioners on there. Great.
Temporarily.
Yeah. So going forward, it's going to take some rewriting. So, but anyhow, I just wanted to pass that along.
Thanks.
thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous.
This microphone speaker is for whoever cares.
And I'll tell you why. It's because I kicked the plug in out under my chair.
If I would've known, I would've given you mine.
As opposed to getting under there during the meeting and fixing that, I was like, yeah, that's good. Yeah. Just saying, Josh.
No, it keeps shutting itself off. That's what I thought it was. It had like an auto shut off.
He did it, but it's not video. He
Has,
did it
uh,
like
has our grand night
It made it kind of look like.
Yeah, I owe him a phone
Yeah,
call.
just look at it.
Yeah, but we're
So that day he
we're
came
fine.
down.
Yeah.
Okay, great, wonderful.
We're fine.
Because I thought we were gonna be forced to go to my house and my
That's
wife would have a heart attack.
Yeah.
It's,
Able to do it
the
that
batteries
way.
are really
That well, I
poopy and
guess
these things